Hello everyone, welcome back to Rogue Robot Reviews. In today's episode, we'll be covering a very special robot who goes by the name... what happened? Who turned off the lights? Hang on, give me a second, I can fix this. Okay, here we are, gotta fix this. Much better. Sorry about that. Anyways, today we are discussing the fan-favorite Wall-E character known as Light the Lightbot. I decided to do this guy next since I want to stick to my habit of reviewing at least one of the primary reject bots every year. Plus, I want to keep the animal lookalike trend going. We already did the robot equivalents of a lobster, a giraffe, a seagull, or albatross, or whatever I called him, I don't remember. So why not do the robot equivalent of a firefly next? Grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a bowl of popcorn, and...
hold on to your butts.
Because we are starting this puppy now. As the name suggests, Light is, well, a Lightbot, an emergency unit designated to the Human Assistance class, by and large created them to provide the Axiom's passengers with a light source during a power outage, or in any environment in desperate need of illumination. Not that kind of illumination. So essentially, they will never leave you, me, or anyone else for that matter in the dark. Light is also one of the quote-unquote main rogue robots, having more screen time and marketing featuring them than the other background bots. So, how about we start talking about his design, eh? Light proudly boasts a bright yellow paint job, and has a long head that becomes thinner towards the back with a black underside. At the front is where his titular light is on full display, ready to be flashed, featuring his little 120-watt dual-setting halogen bulb. Now, you're probably asking yourself right now, isn't it a bit weird that he uses an outdated halogen bulb instead of, an LED, considering he was created by B&L in the 2100s? Well, that's just the thing.
You are correct, sir!
But that's what his robot files stated, and you should know by now how questionable the robot files can be with their additional little tidbits. Okay, so after doing a little bit of research, I learned that halogen bulbs are apparently no longer allowed to be sold under US law as of 2023, but that is with the exception of floodlights and spotlights, which Light isn't too far removed from being like. So I guess that means that this is more acceptable than I gave it credit for. And remember, I'm not a lights expert or anything, and I don't claim to be, so don't ask me. Anyway, as is the case with most flashlights out there, his bulb is surrounded with bright reflectors, and there's this protective glass lens on the outside, kept in place by a black sealing ring around the edge. Now, it should be abundantly clear by now that this guy doesn't exactly have a face or any eyes to speak of, making me question how he manages to get around and interpret the world around him. Perhaps he uses echolocation or something? Pixar likely didn't consider this and just animated him in a similar fashion to how they anthropomorphized their company's lamp mascot, Luxo Jr., but who knows, perhaps his bulb somehow works as an iris in some way, considering most other Wall-E robots have eyes made from a series of lights. Besides, my brain often just assumes that the front of his flashlight head is supposed to be his eye anyway. His head stems from a little black extendable telescopic neck module, almost like a micro-sized version of this guy's neck, which is the only area of articulation on his entire body. Underneath this is his aerodynamically shaped torso, with a pair of stubby shoulder wings and a pair of coral orange stripes wrapping horizontally around his body. He has a small B&L logo on his rear and a black underside going up his back, containing a charger port, which is very much so necessary for recharging the battery he runs on. I think this is one of the only times we ever see a robot with a charging outlet on their body. He also has a pair of aqua-colored taillights as well, such a nice detail. And there you have it, folks. Light's design is ultimately very simplistic and basic, a far cry from the other larger, more complex robots we've talked about. But that's really all it needs to be. A unique-looking, straightforward bot with a simple, literally straightforward job. I also think it's safe to say that the inspiration for him came from various handheld flashlights, desk lamps, and maybe even some mining hats.
Like a miner, like a mining cave or something.
It's also worth acknowledging how minuscule he is. He's among the smallest robots in all of WALL-E, flying as light as a feather, an itty-bitty firefly. Something really worth acknowledging is that out of all of the main rogue robots, Light is the only one without a confirmed voice, never saying a single word or making even a single noise, staying completely mute throughout the whole movie, unlike the others.
Just a trick. You look gorgeous. Clear.
Now, this isn't a huge deal or anything, as the scenes he's in never really called upon him to use his voice anyway, and hey, let's just be thankful he wasn't going about the whole movie making cringy Light puns or anything. But it definitely separates Light from the other prominent rejects, more on that later. Now, Light and Defib share something pretty unique, that being the fact that the only individuals of their models that are shown on screen are the reject ones. They're never seen elsewhere, like on the Lido deck or running down the Axiom gangways. Obviously that's because the Lightbots are an emergency unit and are being kept in storage somewhere, only coming out when the situation requires them. We, however, are in a situation that requires him, which means we must pay a visit to the rogue robot. The reject Lightbot has a red boot attached to his head and left side, and his malfunction is debatable, oddly enough. Several official sources and most of the fans will say that his bulb is prone to flickering or dimming instead of maintaining a steady or consistent light. This isn't ever actually shown to us on screen though. In fact, the movie kinda shows us the opposite, with him only occasionally turning off his light. It's more likely that he just suffers from a lack of coordination at times, but who knows, maybe his light does have those exact problems, we just never see it. He is a bit klutzy, occasionally bonking into walls and colliding with objects. Quite ironic, isn't it, that the one who has his own built-in light could have such questionable vision. But maybe even that's not the case. Perhaps he's just a little dim-witted, not exactly the brightest bulb in the box. The lights may be on, but there ain't nobody home. It's unknown where he was originally meant to be kept in the repair ward, and as such, I've labeled him as an outlier along with Purdy, Fixit, and this little guy, meaning they aren't kept in any specific area and just loosely roam the repair ward as they please. He seems to have a low attention span, not wanting to stay in one place for very long, and his small size can make it very difficult for the car sticks to grab hold of him. Though I imagine Serve the tennis bot could just smack him across the room with his racket like a fly swatter if he wanted to. Yikes. When Wally and Eve first enter the repair ward, he can be seen in section 1B ascending out of the pens all the way up to the ceiling. Light has the right idea here. If you have the ability to fly at your own leisure, then why are you stuck confined to your pen? As long as you avoid the car sticks, go and move around the room. Too bad for those ground dwellers, though. He can be seen wandering and swooping down across the room behind Wally, and then later when Wally stumbles out from his spot, he emerges from hiding and stares at Wally from section 2A of the repair ward, wobbling back and forth like a loose lamp blowing in the wind. Once Wally accidentally opens the entrance doors to the repair ward, Light realizes that he's been freed.
I'm free.
But before escaping, he lowers himself to look through the hole in the glass doors, and barges right into the diagnostics room to get to his new master of Wally, before leaving the place somewhere off camera. He then dashes down the hallway intersection alongside the whole gang of rejects, almost always floating high above the group, but comes to a halt due to the steward standing in front of him. He can be seen again when he gets his picture taken, now hovering above the small blue robot. And after seeing Eve get upset and darting away with Wally, he runs past the Stewart bots pretty quickly but bangs against the wall, ricocheting back into the crowd, before turning to his right. He's then seen again with a small group of the reject bots while searching for Wally, but he arrives too late to meet up with him. He looks behind himself, sees that the Stewarts are still in pursuit of them, and gets the heck out of there. If it weren't for him returning in the Climax due to his main reject status, he probably would have been among the rogue robots with the least amount of screen time. And now everyone, we've arrived at my biggest, most glaring, and probably most contentious point about Light. His role as one of the main rogue robots. Now, the supporting cast of 7 to 8 reject bots in Wall-E all serve a purpose to the story or get several moments to shine, by setting up and paying off funny jokes or helping to progress the plot forward. That is with the exception of the Lightbot. I realize now that he hardly ever gets any focus and never contributes to the action, and it wasn't until recently that I had this epiphany. Heck, in the repair ward scene, most audience members likely would have overlooked him there. And now you're trying to tell me that this tertiary background character is one of Wall-E's bestest friends till the end now, here to stay for the climax?
Really?
It feels unwarranted and strange since we're hardly familiar with him. And it just makes him come off as needless and unnecessary. You could probably just cut him from the movie and next to nothing would change, as cruel as that may sound. Meanwhile, everyone recognizes the robot who smacks himself with a tray, the one shaped like a helmet, the one throwing tennis balls, and so on. I can see so many other robots being more deserving of a larger role, but they get forgotten about in favor of this guy?
That's right, keep moving!
You know what? Yeah.
Except you stay.
I could view it this way though. Those other characters already got their time in the spotlight, so now we can give attention to those who were glossed over. Now that would have made sense if Light had gotten something to do afterwards that demanded his return, but as we shall soon see, that's not the case. We finally get to see Light again inside of a dark storage locker, aimlessly bouncing from one side of the room to the other, kinda like a ball in a game of Pong. I guess you could say he's light-headed. And hey, the lights are off in here. That means he's technically doing his job, am I right? All the while, a crowd of robots watch him make a fool of himself, alongside Purdy. But he then emerges from the room, hearing the familiar tune of "Put on your Sunday clothes," and excitedly zips right after Wall-E, leaving his little audience behind. He's now been reunited with his savior and happily runs down the hallways, bouncing his head to the music. He then comes to a stop to watch the captain's message, but upon the sight of the battalion of stewards in front of them, he retreats behind Purdy like a coward. Probably the best move though, since he's too small and delicate to do anything to the stewards. He then checks out the ever so destructive hands and makes his way towards the Lido deck. Upon arriving, the ship begins to tilt, and he gets shoved down the deck by his buddies. Once everything has calmed down again, he sits near Purdy as she's tending to a fallen passenger, and then he proceeds to not participate in transporting the plant because, well, he can't exactly. To make up for that, he mourns the potential loss of his friend, looking down and nodding his head in sadness. Back on Earth, he efficiently zooms down the Axiom's entrance stairs, wanting to make sure if his friend will be alright or not, and is shocked at the image of an explosion in the distance, looking down towards Mo with concern. Finally arriving to the celebration, he discovers that Wall-E is still alive and well, before following the others to give the couple a moment to rekindle their love. The story then comes to a close as he hangs out with his new family of friends, seemingly interacting with Purdy as she does some touches to Wall-E's truck. And that's it, folks. That's literally it. Dude hardly did anything in this movie, am I right? But here's the thing, it wasn't originally meant to be like that. As seen in the deleted version of the docking sequence, Light was originally meant to be one of the members of the cleanup crew, spotting out contamination. Catastrophe. I can't say it! Spotting out contaminant, that isn't visible at first sight, kinda like the germs that you would find by using a blacklight. Here's a video to show you how that works. Not only that, but in another alternate docking scene from way back in the early stages of Wall-E's development, when the humans were still gibberish-speaking alien blobs, Light was shown examining for any foreign grime on the returning astronauts, and accompanying Vacuum with disposing of disruptive robots, including Wall-E, before letting out an alarm when Wall-E escapes from his demise. Yeah, pretty dark stuff. I'm glad they didn't go forward with any of that. Doesn't seem so cute and innocent when he's doing things like this, huh? But it's clear to me that they always had bigger plans or ideas in mind for Light, but most of them fell through as the film evolved, and they just kept him around because they liked the gimmick of a Lightbot so much that they didn't want to scrap it. There are still ways to utilize him. He could have illuminated a dark area for the characters to traverse, or aided in the search of something very important, but there aren't really any instances in the film as it currently stands where they could have organically done any of that with him. He has a valuable purpose, but when the sun is shining and the Axiom's halls are gleaming, he's pretty much useless. This may seem like an unfitting or odd comparison, but a character that Light reminds me of slightly would be none other than BJ Novak's character from The Office, Ryan Howard. A newly hired temp who is set up as the 5th main character of the show, who is put all over the marketing and the intro and stuff, but oftentimes gets shafted and feels forgotten about, as if the writers don't fully know what to do with them all the time. He doesn't really have a super strongly defined personality or comedic gimmick, mostly because he's meant to be an audience stand-in character, and is often overshadowed by the main characters and the more memorable secondaries surrounding him.
Boy, have you lost your mind, cause I'll help you find it.
He's constantly propped up as one of the mains, but doesn't really feel like one. That right there is basically Light in a nutshell. Now, keep in mind that a lot of this was kind of intentional with Ryan, and the character would be further developed later on and have a variety of jokes made around them. Light, meanwhile, feels like the aftermath from when you strip away a character's importance or relevance to the plot. You're left with a basic canvas of what once was. But don't get this twisted. I love Light just like I do with every other rogue robot, but I can't help but find him to be the least compelling or memorable of the primary reject bots. But perhaps I can make it up to you by lovingly going over the tons of supplementary material made around him. The dude had some promotional images made for him, a 360-degree view of his model and description bio were on the Wall-E website, and of course, there's his robot file, where the narrator states that he uses
easy locate hull pigmentation.
Yeah, I don't really know what the Shrek that means. Perhaps that's what he uses to look around himself? It's also stated that he has an anti-gravity magnetic airframe, which is what presumably almost every robot requires to fly or hover above the ground. It's pretty cool to finally have an actual official name for that whole system. He was featured in various Pixar character encyclopedias. In the deleted scene Dumped, he can be observed running down the hallway, banging into a wall again, very characteristic of him. We can see what his design once looked like via concept art, such as these that show him with a gray paint job and red stripes, plus a small light emblem on his side. Or this one from the early days of the film's production, which makes him look very similar to that droid, what was he called? Dio, I think, from Star Wars The Rise of Walker. Or there's this one that looks near identical to his final appearance. You can also find him in storyboards, character model sheets, and the classic animatic shot where he adorns a temporary reddish-pink coloration. In one of the Wall-E video games, he can be commanded by the player to light up darker areas on specific levels. Finally, they gave him a true purpose. The game devs here were able to do what the movie wouldn't, use light to their full advantage. And in another game, he's shown being released from the repair ward and playfully circles around Eve. That is absolutely precious. He made appearances in the Lots of Bots book, the Rogue Robots book, Down to Earth book, and several other Wall-E children's storybooks, being commonly included in their illustrations. He had a very small figure and a little toy made after him, and was featured in various puzzles, coloring pages, and this massive Pixar character poster. And there's probably other bits and pieces of media that Light has appeared in that I'm blanking on right now. Quite a lot of representation for such a minor and inessential character, but I kinda dig it. The more the merrier, no matter how important the character may be. As stated earlier, my biggest criticism with Light is that he always felt like an afterthought. A guy who seems like a key player because he's seen alongside our heroes, when really he's about as important as the winged robot. A bit of a man's thinks he's on the team kind of moment. I don't think he even directly interacts with Wall-E once. Heck, even Envy from Inside Out 2, another tiny, somewhat overlooked character, I feel added way more to her own movie than this guy ever did for his own. He's just sorta in this. But does that make him a boring or pathetic inclusion of a robot? No. Having a curious little scamp to go along with you for the ride can be quite charming. And charming, Light definitely is. His job is certainly unique, his design is cute, and his super brief moments of humor are nice. It's no wonder the fans love him regardless of his lack of usefulness to the film, as one can see with all the fan art that's been made of him over the years. Despite me thinking he's a bit overrated and not exactly earning of his title of main rogue robot, I'm always happy to see him. It's good to see any rogue robot get that amount of attention. He's a chipper, aloof little robot that can brighten up your day, quite literally. And let's not forget that despite the fact that he can't do much to help in some situations, he remains loyal to his good friend Wall-E. You gotta respect that. And I'm sure he's someone out there's favorite Wall-E character. And you know what? Screw it. I know that I'm about to contradict what I've been saying throughout the video, but he belongs with the rest of the main crew. As long as he's bringing smiles to kids and adults alike, that's all that matters. Light is someone who both isn't and is worthy of holding the title of being a fan favorite character. A bit of an enigma of a robot. One might even say that he's lit. I'm so sorry guys, I had to do it. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I shall see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!
It's lit, 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 it's lit.